Check it.
Hello and good afternoon, everybody. Hi, there is Lee Bailey. This is Be Encouraged, and we have a special guest here at the 4:30 part of our show, and he is the CEO of Volunteer Fairfax. As you know, we just had our buddy last week on with Volunteer Fairfax as well, and but this young man here, this youngster, Steve Muddy, is going to be coming on with us right now. Steve, how are you, sir? Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Lee. I'm great. Thanks.
Great. Listen, we had on your guy in charge of emergency preparedness and stuff with Volunteer Fairfax last week. His name is flying out of my head.
Tejas Patel.
There you go, Tejas. Yeah, and I told him, I said, "Are you from Texas?" Tejas, it's Tejas, right?
No, everybody calls him that.
I know. Anyway, well, he had some great stuff to talk to me about with what they're doing as far as the PPE roundup and getting that distributed out to doctors and hospitals and whatnot. And I'm sure you've been involved in that as well. But we had you come back on the suggestion of Tejas, because there's a lot more to Volunteer Fairfax than the emergency preparedness group. So if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit of an oversight of kind of what is Volunteer Fairfax? Where did it start? When did Volunteer Fairfax kind of get instituted? And for what reason?
It was, well, of course, you know, volunteerism goes all the way back to, Ben Franklin.
Sure.
But we're 45 years old, and thanks for calling me a youngster, by the way. I've actually, this is my 52nd year as a volunteer.
Wow.
And so it was a natural for me to take over this organization a couple of years ago. And our purpose, Lee, is to, in one sentence, is to mobilize people and resources to serve community needs. And so obviously the focus right now, the spotlight is on the community needs associated with COVID, hence your segment with Tejas on emergency response. But what we've been doing for 45 years in Fairfax County is, first of all, promoting the ethic of volunteerism, passing that from one generation to the next. And so, our organization has spanned 2 generations already. You and I were just talking a few minutes ago about the fact that as the COVID emergency transitions from a health emergency to more of a recovery phase, that recovery phase, some people say, will last a generation. And services are stretched to the max now, and they will be as we transition to recovery. And so volunteerism plays an extremely important role. And so our job is to make sure that the pipeline of volunteers are out there, but equally importantly, that there is a pipeline of good, impactful volunteer opportunities available as well. And we play the matchmaker.
Give me an example of some of the things before COVID that you guys were coming to the rescue, as it were, um, mobilizing your volunteers to assist in, and what kind of other types of scenarios do you guys have come into? Do you work with do you help with homeless and
Yes,
stuff
I
like that?
mean, again, we're not providing direct services, but
Mm-hmm.
we're providing volunteers that are involved in frontline work with homelessness, a lot with food insecurity. We have just thousands of volunteers that work at food pantries and are still working at food pantries now during this emergency,
Okay.
and mentorship, language translation. Um, you know, um, One interesting thing I should stop and explain is that uh, you often think of the volunteer as the giver, not the receiver. But a big part of what we've been doing for decades is giving something to volunteers,
Mm.
a greater sense of self-esteem, self-worth, helping enrich their lives. Everybody,
Sure.
it's human nature to want to help others. And so we're actually doing a service to volunteers by
Yeah.
giving them an outlet for the help that they want to give to the community.
Right. Giving them a reason to, to be doing things. I mean, there's a lot of people, especially I would suggest that you probably have a fair amount of retired persons who aren't ready to retire, but we know, for instance, it won't be too long before my wife's going to have to retire if she starts losing money.
Right,
It's one of those deals.
right.
So she won't be ready to retire, but she's going to have to, and then she's going to be looking for other outlets. Being a teacher, she'll probably work with teaching and stuff like that, or maybe move to a different school group to start a kind of a sub new career. But that's neither here nor there. We know a lot of people that have done that, but so where do you see most of your volunteers coming from, and where would you like to see more volunteers come from?
Well, first of all, age-wise, they come, they're as young as preteen on up to, and obviously coming with their parents in that case, on up to almost age 90. I
Wow.
can't say that there's a real particular sweet spot because we have different programs that are geared towards each age group. So for
Sure.
the seniors, 60 and up, and really it's 50 and up now, that represents roughly a third of the population in Northern Virginia. That's a huge source of volunteer capacity that
Sure.
we want to tap. And of course, that ratio is, as people age, is getting even higher. And so we're looking to develop new programs in the coming years that will tap more volunteer opportunities for people who are aging. And as you know, the medical advances have allowed people to do a lot more in later years, and
Yeah.
there are all kinds of things that you have to do to prepare a community for that for that eventuality, including providing good, meaningful, life-fulfilling volunteer opportunities. So that's a big one. Young professionals, people who are in the court system, who are either wanting to preemptively do some community service before they go through the court system, or it's imposed by the courts. And that's no small source of volunteer capacity as well. And an opportunity to convert someone from having made a mistake to finding a meaningful way to pay for that mistake and actually adopting that as part of their life going forward, and serving the community for forever after. And that we see that happening all the time.
A positive contributor to the community gives them an opportunity, and a lot of them embrace that. I mean, I know that there's I've met and worked with young people, especially young people that have been in that situation because I worked safety and security at a high school in Falls Church. And so, yeah, they come in and they've been to court, and they're like, I see them sweeping after school and doing stuff with the janitor, with our maintenance technician, or whatever we call it. And they have a chance to make up for a little bit of their past sins, I guess you might say. And they seem to enjoy it, and they seem to have an opportunity to show that they're not a bad person.
Yeah.
You know, that they had made teenagers. Boy, I know when I was a teenager, I made plenty of mistakes. Luckily, none of them ended me up. Could have, some of them, but luckily none of them ended me up, you know, in a place where I had to be confined or anything like that. But so my question, as far as the website, I put the website up, volunteerfairfax.org. If someone wants to get involved, do you have postings for what groups need volunteers? Is that how that works on the website?
Yes, exactly. I mean, if you're on there, there should be a button on the landing page that says volunteer now. And if you click that button, it'll take you right to a list of available opportunities, which, you know, once you've registered, if you're already registered, you click on that and off you go. If you haven't registered yet, it's easy to do that. And then you can search the system for volunteer opportunity.
And the same goes for companies and corporations that want to do team building and things like that, and they want to volunteer as a group. I know that when we were at one of the high schools that I worked at, we had Deloitte came in and did all kinds of exterior landscaping for us. You know, obviously our principal arranged to get the flowers and the bushes and all that kind of stuff, but they came in with their T-shirts on and dug up and planted and everything. Just, I mean, it came out beautifully, of course, but it was something that Deloitte wanted to give back to the community. It was a program that within themselves to give back to the community. And I guess that's something that they can also reach out to you guys. And I'm not saying that they didn't in the first place. This was several years ago.
Yes, well, they do actually. Lee, as a matter of fact, Deloitte is currently a partner of ours. We do a lot with them. And they're an example, one of many companies that we work with, including Freddie Mac and Amazon, who are, you know, wanting to harness the very large volunteer capacity of their mostly young, workforce, and get them out there and serving the community. Yeah. And sure, that's good. I mean, that's good for business. That's good for image. But companies like Deloitte and the people who are running these community service programs recognize that these activities strengthen the community.
Sure.
And when you strengthen a community, particularly talking to young people about strengthening a community that they're eventually going to inherit, it's an investment, and it's a worthwhile investment. And so on that basis, you have a lot of activities that are going on day in and day out under normal conditions. Right. However, that has all but dried up right now because of the distancing, problems. And even when you get to a new phase of reopening, that phase may not meet the risk management department's test of when it's good for your young employees to go out and do group activities together. So that's something that we're monitoring very closely. We're actually being asked to advise companies on that, and in turn we ask them to advise us on what they're seeing. So we've assumed another role now in addition to being a conduit for volunteerism, and that is being a conduit for really critical information on when is the right time to give the green light for this or for that. Right. And there's a lot of pent up need, and there's also a lot of pent up demand to volunteer. So we're just kind of laying in wait and watching all the signals and ready to, pull different triggers and mobilize more people as we're able to.
Now, how do you recruit? I mean, do you have social media that you work in that area, or how do you go about? Well, I guess this is obviously one of the ways, but yes. How else do you let people know that there's just plenty of things that they can at least get signed up for and be waiting for a call, because they probably will get a call at some point, especially as we start to loosen up some of the restrictions, obviously. And I'm not totally personally convinced that we're not going to have a resurgence as the weather starts to cool down again. And I'm not looking forward to that, and I hope that doesn't happen. But we just know that that's certainly a possibility.
Yeah.
But so that's going to again hurt, because you're going to try and keep your volunteers safe, and you don't want to put them in a position to, contract any kind of sickness or anything like that.
Right.
So I'm just curious as to what are the next steps for Volunteer Fairfax, as far as during this summer, when it looks like we're going to be in a nice little lull in the pandemic area, and into if it starts to rise up again, and hopefully by then we'll have something medically that we can start doing about it.
Yep.
But prayers up to everywhere. But what are you guys looking to? What's your transition right now going into as phase 3 next week starts? According to Governor Northam, what's the next steps for Volunteer Fairfax?
Well, phase 3, doesn't change too much what we're going to be doing. We're actually going to take a good part of the summer convening a group consisting of most of our staff members, our entire corporate events department, members of our board, some of our partner organizations that we work with, some of our partners with the county government, and some of our corporate partners. It's a group of probably 15 to 20 people that we're going to be getting together and meeting at least 5 times over the summer, and we're calling it a virtual/remote volunteering innovation group, and that's exactly what we're going to charge ourselves to do: is come up with as many possible new ideas that don't exist right now, so that as there continues to be need out there unfulfilled, and there continues to be spontaneous volunteerism, which everybody, it's human nature that they are in a good giving mood during an emergency like this, and there's nothing more frustrating than not being able to tap the power of that. And so this innovation group is going to look at what our counterpart organizations are doing around the country, what's working, what's not working, and then we're going to lock ourselves in a virtual room and come up with a whole bunch of new ideas, sort of a suite of ideas that we can offer individuals, groups, that they can do as this, I think, inevitably drags on and people are not able to do things the way they normally would.
Sure. Okay, well, listen, Steve, I want to thank you for coming on the program today. And I want to also encourage you to please, by all means, let us know whenever you have new innovation and new programs, projects, or say you're lulling on the volunteers that you're having available to you. Please, by all means, let us know. We'd love to have you back on, Steve, anytime, or any of your people to talk about their specific group, kind of like Tejas did. Talking about the emergency preparedness, but if you have other groups, other directors of different other areas, we'd love to have them on to talk about that as well. This is a big push for us too, with More Joy, because we definitely want to be positive, and we're contributing members of our community, and getting involved with Volunteer Fairfax is definitely part of that. So we appreciate you coming on today and talking about a little bit about everything that goes on, and I know it's just a little compared to what all you guys do. So I encourage everybody to, before they get a chance, to go to volunteerfairfax.org, absolutely, and check it out. Peruse the website, see what they've got on there, see if there's something clicks for you, especially if you're looking at ways to volunteer. Something might hit you and go, I know how to do that. You never know. You never know what'll hit you and when it'll hit you at the right time. So Steve Muddy, the CEO of Volunteer Fairfax, thank you so much for being on our program today. We really appreciate you, and we look forward to having you back on another time.
Great to be with you, Lee. Thank you very much for the opportunity. All right. All the best to you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Well, everybody, that was Steve Muddy, the CEO of Volunteer Fairfax, and we're going to be right back, and we have another guest coming on. He's been on before, and he's going to be back with us. Zafar, my man. I'll talk to him in a little bit. Well, as I said, welcome back, everybody. And as I said, I've got Zafar Azam. I believe that's correct. And lost my piece of paper that has Zafar's name on it. I only know him as Zafar because he's one of my best friends now. Zafar, how are you, my friend?
Hey Lee, good seeing you again. It's been a while, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, no, we talked so much about the other subject we didn't really get into. We talked about the whole, the funeral thing set up that you guys are working on. That great project that seems like it's really I so exciting for the Muslim community and the community abroad. That it just sounds like an exciting program, and we're glad to have had you on to talk about that. What I would like to talk about now, though, is you've done a lot of stuff in the community, feeding those who otherwise can't go and get food for themselves. And you want to talk to us a little bit more about that, Zafar?
So sure, I can talk about that too, but I would like to talk more of the time about a special group that I'm involved in,
Okay.
Which is Afghans living in DC area. So I guess since you asked, I'll go ahead and touch upon
Please,
that.
Yeah.
From Mustafa Center, what we normally would do during Ramadan, we would feed about 150 people every evening for iftar, for breaking their fast. But again, because of the COVID-19, our doors were closed. So this year, what we just did a couple of food drives where we just gave people the food to go cook it at home. On a couple instances, we had warm meals that we passed out to community members. So we did that. That was through Mustafa Center. But today I would like to talk more about Afghans living in DC area.
Okay.
So
and that's a group that you have.
Yeah. So that's a group that I'm part of, and I guess we'll dive right into it. I guess you know what it is and when it was started.
Sure.
So Afghans living in this area started it as a Facebook group by an Afghan community member named Jawed Kotwal back on April 14, 2012. So him and a couple of buddies started a Facebook group with the idea of getting Afghans together to just communicate and be on the same page and know about community events and if they could help each other in one way or another. And so for a little while, it was just a small group. But in the last couple of years, as more people found out about it and more people got involved, it became bigger and bigger. And today we have like 10,980 members, so almost 11,000 members. And it's, I would say, probably one of the best organizations as far as being for Afghans in probably not just all of US, but in all of the world. And I can proudly say that without, exaggerating it or anything like that. And it's still mainly a Facebook group. We have moved on to registering it and becoming a 501c3 organization, which I will dive, into that a little more. But I guess the moment where we really gained traction a couple of years ago, we had an Afghan family who recently, moved to the area. And I believe their breadwinner, their husband, and the father of, I forget how many kids, but he had a few kids as well. He got in a bad accident. I think a truck hit him. And unfortunately, he lost his life and his family didn't have any other way to provide for themselves. So we went and we pitched to the community that, this family needs our help. And we set a GoFundMe fundraiser for them. And we raised, I believe, almost $60,000 for that family. And so that was when more buzz got in the community about who we are and what we do. And ever since then, oh my God, we've been a fundraiser group, a community outreach group, a refugee resettlement group, like a job and resume maker group, what have you, any issues, a legal advice group. There's people who need immigration help. There's people, they just recently started driving here and aren't familiar with laws and they get a ticket and they need a lawyer. So they come into the group. And lately, so I'll show you what I'm wearing currently as I'm not for U.S. Congress. So lately we're trying to move to the point where we empower our community to take action in, civic duties and participate in the political arena because of the importance of, having the proper representation in the community politically.
Yeah.
So I could go on and on about all the different things, but I would like to, I guess, reemphasize that yes, we currently have about 5, I guess, admins, moderators.
Mm-hmm.
3 of them are more on the back end, approving posts, moderating content, and whatnot. And then myself and the gentleman who started the group, Javed Kotwal, we are more, I guess, the face of the community where, if there's a funeral, we go out there. If there's a fundraiser, we go out there. Today, I went live at Robinson High School at the precinct to encourage people to get out and vote. So all of the in-person, it's just been done by 2 people. And we were just talking about it the other day that it's amazing the insane amount of things, we have accomplished with just such a small group. And no budget, no office, nothing else. And maybe looking back, maybe that's been our strength, where we have moved so quick and done so many things. Because we don't have a board of directors, or we don't have members whose permissions we have to ask, and anything like that. So I'll slow down a little bit and let you ask me questions in general, or about the specific things that you'd like me to go into, besides the one that I mentioned about the fundraiser.
No, that's fine. I don't need to talk. I'm not one of these guys that needs to say anything. I'm happy to hear the information. You're very eloquent in how you deliver what you're talking about, and that's it's very informative and educational for those who are watching. I think that it's important for us to make sure that we know that the Afghan community has a place, and they have a place in this country. They have a place in Fairfax County in Northern Virginia, and obviously it's a place that's growing, and that's a good thing, I think. And as long as we get all of these special interest groups that they get themselves involved, like for instance with my previous guest, Volunteer Fairfax, we need to put you guys together with them. We need to put other groups together with them, because they have volunteering throughout this community in Northern Virginia and Fairfax County. There's lots of room for people to get involved in their volunteering, especially as groups. We just talked about, I don't know if you had a chance to listen to, but there's some corporations like Deloitte and, Northrop Grumman and other big companies who go as a group into where they're needed for volunteering, and, they wear their shirts, so they advertise who they are, that kind of thing. And they go into, for instance, I think our principal called Volunteer Fairfax when this is several years ago, and a whole crew of Deloitte workers came and did a bunch of landscaping around the high school.
And I'm glad you mentioned that. So anytime we hear any of those kind of opportunities, it doesn't have to be just within the Afghan community.
Oh, sure.
If there's something that's going on, we let our members know, hey,
sure,
go ahead, do this. We had like a Bernie rally, I believe, in Springfield a couple of months ago. That was the first time where we tried to steer away from, politics or anything. But again, at the same time, it is important to know that you don't have to, vote for Bernie, or you don't have to be for Bernie, but just to encourage people to, take part and go out to rallies of whatever candidate, you want. And same thing with the volunteering. So I'll make sure to pass that on to our group and make sure they get involved. So I guess part of the reasons why I even got involved, because I guess I'm a former refugee myself. And when I moved here, I was a young kid, and we were in Midwest, and there were not that many Afghans. I remember my brother even crying because we didn't have our food. A couple of days with the sandwich bread that just got old.
I
miss home and I miss our food. Exactly. So we saw those hardships. And fortunately, there were people who helped us to the extent that they could. And now I always like to give back. So having that, in the back of my mind, how tough it was for us, and how, a lot of the lessons we learned by learning from our mistakes and as we go. So that I wanted to make sure, not just our group, we wanted to make sure that anybody that arrived here newly, because a lot of people that come from Afghanistan here, they have a different perception And it's kind of like I'm going to heaven in a way, where America, there's money everywhere, and there's so many things, and then they come here and they have to work so hard because there's crazy amount of rent and bills and so many expenses, and they don't know what to do. So we go out there, we try to find them a place to live. I personally co-sign on a few apartment rentals because they don't have any credit.
Right.
So just that sense of community. And so the reason, I guess, why I even moved to the area here, because there's a large Afghan population, I think second to California. And there's been Afghans here since the 70s, 80s. And they do have other organizations, but it hasn't been as active. And so what we have done at Afghans living in DC area, and now we're going to start calling ourselves Afghan Community Empowerment, because we are shifting to like an umbrella group where we have smaller groups dedicated, for different things, because the group is getting too big, where if we put immigration questions there, job seeking questions and all of this, it takes away from the bigger picture message of, empowering our Afghans. So we'll do like an umbrella group and move on to smaller organizations.
Cool.
But what we have done, I guess, better than anybody else, it's making sure that we involve like the different generational groups of Afghans. So you have Afghans, who have been here since the 70s, 80s, 90s, that are well established, well educated. They have kids here, they have businesses here. And they have a lot of know-how. They've been, I guess, assimilated as much as they can into the American way of life.
Yeah,
exactly. But then we have this recent new arrival of Afghans by the thousands, which, by the way, most of them are translators and people who worked with the American government in Afghanistan. And they came through what's known as a special immigrant visa or SIV visa.
Sure.
And so there was a gap between the older Afghan organizations that were here. They didn't know how to cater to these individuals. A lot of them, it's just cultural shock or cultural differences. And so we try to be that gap in between these new arrivals and then the people that have been here. And so far, it's worked out amazingly well. And I'm personally proud of the work that we do, and the community too. My goodness, there's so many people that always say such great things about how proud they feel to know that there's a community group like this. Because again, we do it out of like a selfless love for the community. So nobody's trying to promote themselves. Nobody's financially benefiting for it. If anything, it's been the opposite. So there's been a lot of times where myself, our group, we have had to, buy things. We have had to forget about driving, all over town and doing things. So, and a lot of people see that and realize that, and they're very thankful for that. We have also had, so although it says Afghans living in DC area, we have now grown to have a reputation all over the US and even as far as like Italy and other people that reach out to us, just because I guess we have come like the network where we know the community members. So if anybody has any questions, they want to connect with anybody,
sure,
they reach out to us. Hey, I need this. Could you help me? A lot of people, even from California, they have moved to this area specifically because of Afghans living in DC area, because they see how active we are. We try to, create events for children. We try to create for our holidays. We were part of the Centennial movement for Afghanistan. So it creates that sense of community, which Afghans love. They love, having guests over. They love,
parties, sure.
And parties. But at the same time,
social events. Let's not say
social
parties.
events.
Social events.
Exactly.
There you go. Yeah.
Exactly. And one of them, the recent that we did. So I don't know if you're aware of the international news, but last month, I think early May, the Afghans were shocked that about 50-something Afghan migrants were going to Iran as refugees, and the Iranian border guards got them. first of all, abused them and tortured them and humiliated them,
Mm.
and then forced them to get into the river to go back to Afghanistan. And about 34 of them drowned in that river.
Yeah.
And a bunch of other ones, I think they were still missing. So
Yeah.
that shocked us. We were really, mad about that, our people are getting treated like that.
Yeah.
And then not a couple of weeks later, we saw footage of another instance with Afghan migrants in Iran again, where they were burned alive in the car. The Iranian police shot at them. And I don't want to show you the video. It's really, graphic, where you can see the bodies of people burning in flames on the side of the road. So that was the point where we were like, enough is enough. And we got together, just a few of us, young individuals from the community. And we did a protest in DC.
Mm-hmm.
We did it in front of our embassy because we were kind of fed up with our own government, not be able to take care of us.
Yeah.
And at the same time, so Iran, since they don't have, political ties, diplomatic ties with the U.S., but they do have like an interest section, which is kind of like a consul general. So we went there and, we just shared our voice, our anger and frustration that, our people should not be burned and drowned just because, that they're refugees. So it's those kind of events where people see that and they feel pride that at least there's somebody that's standing up for them, that will defend them. And that's why, we have such great respect and love in the community.
Yeah. No, you guys have done a great job, it sounds like. And, one of the things that's sad is that people feel like they have to leave their countries,
Exactly.
They seem to really, they want to be there. They want to be in a country that gives them the same freedoms that they can have here in the United States. This is really the bastion right now in this world. As much as there's so much hatred for the United States, there's also much, much love because they have opportunity here. No matter what it comes to, there's still opportunity. And yes, it means it's a lot of hard work, no doubt.
It is. And one of the things which made me appreciate, the United States a lot more. So even when I was a kid, even when I moved here, I was homesick. I think to this day I still am. There's like a big part of me, which just like you said, we want to be back in our country. I yearn to be back in my homeland where it's peaceful and I can go help develop it and be a part of it every day. And for a long time, not resentment, but I had this feeling where I know that whether it was the USSR or even the United States to a degree and other countries, it was because of them that Afghanistan was, in the situation it is. So the Cold War, millions of Afghans lost their life. And all it was a Cold War between the USSR and the United States, but fought with Afghan blood, American weapons, but Afghan blood. So a part of me was like, well, if that hadn't happened, I probably wouldn't have even left. But seeing these refugee stories, and at one instance, I went to Iran for a couple of weeks and I saw the way, Afghans were being treated there. And that was the first time where actually I was thankful, to be in the U.S. And I realized how much, I guess, freedoms and how many things that not take for granted, but I didn't think of it because I thought it was just, common. And then when you see those, especially people who Iran, it's our neighbor, we share a culture with them, we share a religion with them. So it's like so much hypocrisy where, they should be treating us, just like their own, just like as a brother, which they say, we're a brotherly country, but, where's the brotherhood when you're killing and drowning our people?
Right.
And so having those experiences, it really motivates me to help my own people, and not just me. So our other members who are helping in the group, it's that same love for our country and for our people that we do all these things, and it doesn't come cheap, So I have my own business. I'm doing my master's in the evening. The other members, Javed Kotwal, who started the group, same thing. He has his own business, but we have been behind in our own personal lives, where we aren't there as much for our own family, for our own work and business, because so much of our time is spent on making sure, we're there for our community. So we're mainly a Facebook group where if you go on the Afghans Living in DC group, there is so much content. There's so many resources. But if you visit, my personal Facebook for business page or our other members, business page, there's like nothing because we don't even have time to, dedicate it to that.
Right.
Exactly. So, but at the same time, you still feel that pride, that joy. To see the difference that you create and make in the community, and it's encouraging a lot of other organizations where they're learning that they have to pick up the slack and they have membership bases and they have funding, but they aren't as active. And if they are active, they don't. We just roll the ball. We hear something within the next hour. We have a fundraiser going up, and talking about fundraisers. So. Mid-March, as the COVID-19 situation was getting worse, we realized that a lot of Afghans in Afghanistan, they weren't taking it seriously. And so we had this, I guess, shock or sadness that it's going to hit them pretty hard and we need to do something as a community. So again, the same gentleman that created the group, he came up with a way to encourage our Afghan business leaders here in the US to come up and let's do a $1 million fundraiser, which it's never been done. So for Afghanistan, usually people raise a couple of thousand or maybe 50,000 at most. And we decided to do our goal at $1 million. And so we started that, towards the end of March. And since then, we have raised over 200,000. And our goal was to feed families for a month where not only they don't have to go hungry, because a lot of people that were going out, outside their homes, they were saying that, the corona may or may not kill us, but hunger definitely will. And so they had to go work. So it was like twofold, two birds with one stone, where we feed them, but at the same time, we, decline the curve, I guess, flatten the curve and keep them inside their homes. So we have fed a little over 3,000 families, and we're still doing that and trying to help them. So I'll let you speak a little more. Sorry,
I appreciate it. I wanted to say there's a lot of people, obviously, and I think probably from your community, that have joined us on the program to watch.
So I shared, So there's some people we shared, and I would encourage any of those, if they have any questions, anything that I have forgotten, or maybe even share an instance where you have been proud, where you've been happy with how Afghans living in DC has worked the way they have, or whether we have made an impact personally in your life. Please share it so I can read it for the community.
Are you seeing the comments?
Yep. So I see one of them.
Muhammad, right?
Yeah. Yep. I guess I can read them too.
So go ahead. You can read it.
So it says the biggest problem for new migrated Afghans are securing a job at first. It looks like they need more community attention. U.S. is a land of opportunities. Just give them a chance. They're hardworking people, and they will prove themselves. So I wholeheartedly agree with that. A lot of them we try to actually work. So one of our members, our moderators on the community page, all he does is work on resumes and like interviewing his skills. Every Sunday, despite having his own big family to take care of and all the responsibilities that go with that, he dedicates some time to just review resumes, polish up people's interviewing skills. And do that. So, and I'm glad he mentioned this. And we're trying to have our community members empower themselves. So now we have like Afghan businesses who are teaching people IT boot camps, where after 6 months you can get in like software work and troubleshooting work, and start with like 70, 80, 90 grand a year after 6 months of training. Because a lot of the Afghans that come, they just resort to driving for like Uber and Lyft. which at that moment, you get approved rather quickly.
Yeah.
You can be your own boss and pick your own hours. But a lot of these people are working like 80, 90 hours a week, to bring the kind of income.
Yeah.
And I know how both of those platforms work. They take advantage of the drivers. The drivers do all the heavy lifting, but then these people come take like 40, 45% more or less of the money that they make just because, they have a software platform. But again,
well, they're pushing customers to them. I'm not trying to stick up for them or anything like that. And obviously there's going to be other groups that are going to start doing the same thing and charging and taking less because they want you to come work for them.
Exactly.
That's what's great about this country is, it's free market. So,
it is.
Uber's going to have to come down on how much they take because some other company is going to upstart.
Exactly. Yep. You got the free enterprise here. But what happens is a lot of individuals don't know that they don't have the same benefits. So when you work for Uber or Lyft, you won't be qualified. So I guess part of the one thing we did in March, we did another fundraiser where at that time the CARES Act, there was no news about it. We didn't know that, there was going to be all these benefit packages. And these Uber and Lyft drivers, they do not qualify for unemployment insurance.
Right.
And they don't get any sick benefits or any of those benefits. So I was really worried for them that what are they going to do? Because if they don't have that kind of work, they're going to be kicked out of their homes and all of this. So we're just trying to remind, our community that it's okay to do Uber and Lyft, maybe as a starting point until, you gain a little experience and you gain a little more credit and all of those. But be in the mindset, like in the growth mindset, where that's just a stepping stone.
Correct.
It's a good option when you don't have much experience. But then at the same time, go to school, on the side, the evenings, go to community college, learn a trade. So that way, you get into a job where, you have benefits and you have security. Because look, right now, there's no Uber demand. There's no Lyft demand. Everybody's staying home. What are you going to do? So this COVID has, despite all the problems it's caused, it's also been, I guess, a learning lesson for our community where, we can't rely on the same things, forever.
Well, as you know, and that's the other thing too is, and you go to school, you maybe get yourself a nice job with a company that provides benefits, and you can still drive for Uber.
Exactly, you can do that on the side, So I'm not trying to, hate on that, but
a few extra bucks here on that, and I'm not getting paid by Uber, by the way. I just want everybody.
No.
But any of those driving companies, there's lots of them out there that are for couriers and different things.
That Amazon, there's a ton of them out there.
And Amazon's just growing exponentially in this area.
It is.
There's so many jobs available, and they pay, I think, pretty decently. But they have insurance benefits, so that's one of those things that's really necessary. I wanted to say to all of the people who are watching right now with us, if you don't mind, hit the like button or love button or whatever button you want, but just let us know you're there, because it's very important for us in how we do what we do, and how when we have a chance to have people like Zafar on the program, it's really helpful for us to be able to show who all's listening and who all's watching and how many people. We do get some analytics from Facebook on our shows, but just to put names with clicks is really helpful.
And maybe I'll encourage, I'll be more in touch
Please
with you,
do.
and when you need, others, because there's a lot of wonderful people in our community that I'm proud to have known them, and I'm proud of the work that they're doing in the community. And we can make sure that we help one another where you have content on here, but at the same time they get the motivation and the attention to share their work and have the community be aware about what they're doing and their plans for the community.
And I say this too, as much as you when you come from your country that you've grew up in, or at least part of your life you grew up in, then you come to this country looking for a better life. Maybe there's some oppression going on where you're coming from, and of course you try to stay involved in that to try and change that as well, even though you're here. a drive to help change things for the better in where you were, so that you can go back. But you know what? We welcome you here, and we welcome you to become citizens in the United States and become Americans. And that's the beautiful thing about this country, is that no one's from here, except
exactly.
everyone's from somewhere else. But they've come to become Americans, and I think America can do so much more in this world if everyone just understands that America is not trying to colonize anybody. We're not trying to take over anything. We're just trying to be who we are and help as many people as we can in that realm. And so,
I think one of my personal, I guess, missions or goals has been to create that distinction between America and the people, and then America as the institutions and the military and the intelligence arena. Because what I've seen, and this is obviously my personal opinion, but Americans, my goodness, such great hearts, and they want to help people. They want to help people here, help people abroad.
Right.
But then we, as the government or our intelligence community, we haven't had the best track record. I mean, look at South America, the banana republics. Look at Afghanistan and all the other places when we are, I guess, fighting communism and the people even in Afghanistan, that we call them like the moral equivalent, of the founding fathers of America.
Sure.
But then there are a lot of those people who ended up being the Taliban, which is one of the reasons why I finally had to fled my country.
Daesh.
And Daesh,
Taliban, right?
If the Iraq whole thing didn't happen, I don't think Daesh would have happened.
Yeah.
And now I think State Department and all these areas, they're kind of pushing a little heavy-handedly for like the Afghan government to make peace with the Taliban, while the Taliban are like bombing our hospitals and killing our people. And when you Afghans realize this, they kind of become like, why are you guys getting involved in our internal affairs? And to point that out, so I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I just go by what I see. Couple of months early, the Afghan president, he said, I have no intention of releasing these Talibans just so they can go and kill, our soldiers, which, my goodness, they killed so many. But then shortly after he said that, State Department, at the behest of Pompeo, they came out and they said, we're going to be slashing like the budget, the aid budget that goes to Afghanistan by like north of $1 billion.
So here's the thing. Here's the thing I want to emphasize real quick so far, and I know you know this. The thing that occurred to me earlier when we were talking about this was, what we find is if we can just get the governments to get the hell out of the way, the people will take care of each other.
Exactly.
The people of the United States do not represent the government of the United States, even though there's some good things the government of the United States does, no question.
Of course.
But just like any other government, there's all this politics that are involved, which is why we don't talk about politics on this show. Because
so let's clear away.
Mess with stuff, and they try and this side's trying to do this, but then we can't give them the credit because we're not going to let them do that because then they're going to get credit for doing something good, and we don't want them to get that. And
no, I wholeheartedly understand.
People of Afghanistan, outstanding people.
Oh my God, it's bittersweet every time that I go. So a lot of times that I go, people ask me like, how is it? How do you feel? And the one word that I always use, the first thing that comes out of my mouth is bittersweet. Yeah. Because you go in there, it's such a beautiful land, great food. When I go there and I come back here, French fries, it tastes like hay, like fluff to me in here, because you actually taste real food there. And you know what, French fries are supposed to taste. And then the people, they're so kind. We get this bad rep in the media. Somehow we're all, like this fighter mentality and like, animals. No, people are so kind. They help you. We have always been known as one of the most hospitable people on earth, that even if somebody's poor, they don't have anything to eat, they'll go and take a loan from the local shopkeeper just to get you something good to eat or drink.
Right.
So when I see that,
American citizens, they do the same thing. My grandfather, not my grandfather, my great-grandfather, he lived during the Depression, had a house in Arkansas, and the railway was about 2 miles from their house. And everybody knew, all the guys who rode the trains, the hobos, as they say,
Yeah.
that rode the trains knew if they wanted a hot meal, they came to the Teague house, and because my grandfather always had my great-grandfather always had my great-grandmother make double portions of everything she cooked all day long, because they were all out in the fields farming and stuff. And she doubled up everything because there's always probably 9, 10, sometimes more people come to the back door, and my grandfather never wanted to send anybody away. And that's the same way it is in the many.
It is, and that's evident even here. So we bring that aspect of our culture here.
Yeah.
So including myself, other Afghans, anybody we deal with. A lot of times, here's a personal example, right? So I love, making kebabs. Every Sunday, I don't do that as much anymore. I'm so busy. But the past years, it was like clockwork. I would make kebabs, and then obviously the smoke gets out and stuff. And then my mom would come like, can you make like a couple of skewers for the neighbors? Please go ahead, take it to them. And at times I would be like, there's no need for it. And then she'd be like, no, it's a sin because they smell the smoke and the meat, and then you should take it. Yeah, exactly. So we so keep that, and I guess that's one of the things, part of our mission at the Afghans living in DC and Afghan community empowerment is to I guess keep all the positive aspects of our culture. But then there's a lot of baggage that comes in from Afghanistan here too.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I guess besides foreign meddling in our country, one of the aspects, and that's because of foreign meddling, where Afghans have become a little like divided along tribal lines or like language lines,
right.
And so there's that political stuff, and what we encourage and what we shun completely is anybody that brings that over here. So if they say, I'm not going to listen to you because you speak this language and not that language, you know what, bye we don't need that kind of negativity.
Right.
Because our whole point is to encourage all the great and positive aspects of our culture, along with all the great opportunities here in the US that they can learn and take advantage of.
Well, I appreciate you. And, I know that we have people who are also watching, and I would recommend that the people who are watching that are, as we say, red-blooded Americans who are looking to get involved, and they're hearing your plight, and they want to be involved too, helping with English skills, maybe, or job hunting skills, those kind of things, that by all means, they can get in touch with you guys with Afghans Living in America, yes?
Afghans living in DC area, which that's a closed group, but they can go on Afghan Community Empowerment. That's an open page that they can like and they can comment on there, and they can kind of see a few examples of the work that we do, because a lot of our content is in our big 11,000 member group, but that's a member only. You have to meet certain criterias before you're admitted on there. But yeah, we would love to work with any other community members. So I'm actually not just myself, but the members that are running this group. We're creating networks between other community members. The latest example being Afghans for Black Lives Matter. So those things where we help other communities, and anything we can do, anybody we can help. We'll be more than happy to. If you have any opportunities, any volunteer opportunities, or anything that you think our community would benefit, please share it. All I do is post it up on the page, and then let anybody that can use it or be useful to them take it and do what they want with it.
When we get moved into our new studios and our new office, which we haven't not even found yet, so we're going to be searching after this pandemic kind of thing is died off for a little bit. Man, I'd love to have you guys come in. We can build a podcast for you, or a video podcast that you guys can do on a weekly basis or more often.
Exactly. And just even coming on here and speaking to you, everything that you do, it's an experience. and your experience gives you ideas on what to do for the future. And just coming on here, I even thought, I was like, hey, what is a StreamYard? Let me see. I went and saw, how much they charge a month and what you can do. And I even thought, so I think one of the things we did at the beginning of the pandemic on our page, we tried to get our community members who were like doctors, or not just doctors, anybody that had any expertise. Since people were locked up at home, with nothing to do, we decided to create, these hour-long live programs where we could teach them, enrich them. We even had artists come. Just to create, content. So kind of, I guess, going back, we've been a refugee resettlement. We were an entertainment group, a volunteer group, and so many different hats. And again, all with just a few of us. It's incredible, the more even I think about it, I'm like, how have we done, what we have done so far?
Sure. Well, Kadar also said, success can mean different things to everyone. I am sure newly migrated Afghans have ambition, dreams, or purpose that they want to achieve. All they have to do is have the right mindset and strong set of goals. They need to stay focused and motivated throughout the process. When you guys are encountering failure, remember to pick yourself back up and keep going. Never stop. That sounds like Tura. He says that all the time. Never stop. Never ever stop.
Never stop. And that's the mentality that a lot of Afghans, just because we have seen unfortunately plenty of hardship, share of hardships in our lifetime, and that as bad as it is, as sad as it is, it also makes our people probably like the most resilient group of people on earth. Where we go through so many things, just even reflecting on what I have been, my mother, and millions of other Afghan families, but it gives you a different kind of strength and resiliency where you keep going. There's no stopping you. You don't worry about anxiety, depression, anything, despite having so many problems, because again, your mind has grown into the idea that like you can't stop and do those things, which I'm not saying that's a great thing, because you should stop and you should find that time and you should take care of your mental well-being. But there's so much to do that you just gotta focus and continue on.
Well, another thing that occurred to me as we were talking earlier also is that the Americans cannot. It's hard for. I think one of the problems that's hard for Afghanis coming to this country is there is a difference in experience level between Afghanis and Americans, and that is Americans really have not, for the most part, witnessed or been observed some very huge atrocities that occur to human beings. In Afghanistan, because of the Taliban and Daesh and Iran, there's all kinds of atrocities that just even small children witness and have experienced. And the PTSD must be incredible for many people coming from those communities to the United States. And so there's a difficulty there too. And I think my encouragement, and I'm sure your group's encouragement, is that people seek help if they're having those kind of issues.
So I wholeheartedly agree. But one of those things, you gotta walk before you run. So unfortunately, you gotta have a list of priorities where, just like Heather mentioned, I guess the number one priority is just your livelihood, finding a job and finding these things. But I'm very, I guess, motivated. I'm like positive that as time goes by, we will get there, just like other groups previous to us. Like I imagine a lot of people think it's just them going through these hardships, but when the Irish, the Italians, the Catholics, even all those groups that immigrated here, they all face their own pushback, their own problems, and everything. And for us, again, I mentioned this in our live yesterday, but we are a relatively newly arrived group of migrants in this country. But as time goes by, I think I don't want to mention it like, oh, those are luxury things, to think about mental well-being. But sadly, it is. Even in the American population, that there's not enough funding for mental health. There's not enough programs. There's not much attention on those. And for us, my goodness, we're 10 times behind that of the general population when it comes to the mental health area. But I guess one of our mission is to, if we are connected, if we help out one another, no matter the issues, there will always be issues, there will always be problems, but no matter what it is, and as long as you have a cohesive teamwork mentality, you'll be able to do great things. And you don't need a government agency for that. You don't need a budget for that. And we have proved so many people wrong that you don't need any of those. All you do is just, something in your heart, that caring, that feeling of community, that feeling of wanting to give back and empowering, your community. That's enough to get you going and to do great things.
I appreciate you, man. Zafar, it's been great having you on, and I want to say that we'll definitely have you on another time, and maybe you and I can work together and we can start producing some programs for your group.
Sure, I would love to, or our group, or if you have any other ideas.
Yeah.
I jokingly call myself Mr. Solutions, at home and whatnot, because the more ideas you get, I'm sure a lot of people. That's the same way with a lot of people. That we all have so many great ideas, but one thing that I always thank God that I have is like the initiative to make those ideas, see the light of day.
Yes.
Come to fruition.
Yeah.
And that, I guess, it's not just me. I've been fortunate to have the network that I've had. I've been fortunate to be involved in this group where I can share those ideas. I'm sure there's other people that share ideas, but they don't have the right amount of not the right, but they don't have enough of network where those ideas can be amplified and shared by people who, let's say, you have a show here that you can bring them on. So, of course, I would love to work with you, not just for our community, but for any other community that there is, and get the good work and share the love.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. I think I've taken enough of your time.
No, you're taking
I appreciate the opportunity, and it was a good chat. And like I said, I look forward not just to myself, but we'll give an opportunity, for other members. If anybody who's even watching right now, if you have any ideas, if you have done something great that you would like to come and share, please get in touch with myself, with Lee, and we'll make it happen. Thanks so much.
All right, Zafar. Thank you.
Take care. Have a great evening. Bye now.
Don't forget, everybody, like whatever.
Yeah, please like and share. And
I already have a bunch of people. I can just Jawad Katwal.
Oh, so Jawad Katwal, actually, if we can give him a shout out. So that's the gentleman who started the Afghans Living in DC group.
Okay.
And he was supposed to do this live, but I'm filling in for him because he needed a much needed vacation after so many years. So I kind of mentioned that we have been so focused on the community that we have neglected, our own kids and families.
Well,
and
it works,
Yeah, exactly.
It's a little hard for their community. That's where they get their pleasure and they feel good about doing that. That's where they're fed. That's where they get fed. Kamal Hassan Dadman, Hakim Kasemi, and Tora, of course, and Alison Besh, and one friend of mine, Saeed Dawar, Jamil Khan.
Yeah, so thank you all for watching. And then, John, I guess I'd like to thank him, myself as well for the great work that he has done. I hope he's, taking a much needed break and enjoying the vacation. And hopefully once he comes back, we can have better and bigger ideas for the community, because whenever I go on vacation, you have all these thoughts, you get refreshed and re-energized, and you come up with all these new set of ideas.
Yeah. And then they say, stop, you're on vacation. Stop thinking about that other thing. All right.
All right. Thank you so much. Take care. Have a great evening. All right. Bye now.
All right. Bye-bye. All right, everybody. That was great. It was a lot longer than we normally go, but I don't care. I don't know about you, but it was fantastic. Got lots of good information about the Afghan community. I'd like to have more of these communities come on the program and talk about what they're dealing with and what they're looking forward to. And, obviously there's a lot that Zafar has got his community looking forward to in this new environment that they've found themselves in, whether they've been here for several years or just for a short period of time. We appreciate everybody who's watching also from that community, and I know there's a bunch of people. So please let us know, like and share. That's what my little finger is pointing at over here. We appreciate you, and we'd love for you to do that. We're going to go ahead and bow out, but you can hit the like and share while we're closing down the show. And again, thank you so much for tuning in. We will have Zafar Azam back on at some point, and Jade as well. Thank you so much for tuning in, folks, and God bless you.
Saying that it feels right.